Reddit, what moments have you had where you just thought, what the hell is wrong with you? I once parked my car on the street, completely legally, when visiting a friend. Some guy comes running out of the house yelling at me saying that was his parking spot. He had a large driveway that could easily park 6 cars, but here he is, yelling at me for parking on the street I was completely and totally morally and legally entitled to park on. I pointed to the street signs saying it was okay to park, and he yelled, "I don't care what the fucking sign says, you a-hole, move your fucking car or you will regret it." I ignored his threat and went to visit my friend. It was a late night, and I came out about 3 a.m. to drive home, only to discover that someone, wonder who, had let the air out of all my tires. Luckily for me, I own an air compressor, so I hooked it up to my car's cigarette lighter and pumped the air back into my tires. It was pretty cold out, and not the greatest compressor in the world, so it was a miserable 20 minutes or so. Once I was done, I returned the favor, letting the air out of all the tires in the 4 cars in his driveway as well as his boat trailer. I also superglued his mailbox closed. That made me feel better. My gran fell on the curb in front of my house when she was getting out of her car and broke her hip. She was lying on the ground crying when she said a stranger passed. My gran asked her to just knock on our front door, and the person just stared at her and kept walking, and my gran waited an hour until my dad came out and found her. What kind of person just stares at a little 80-year woman crying on the ground? Fuck that person. Similar thing happened to my dad. He was on a business trip. It was raining at the time and there were no mats out in front of the hotel he was staying at. When he walked into the hotel, Hilton, he slipped from the wet floor, shattered his ankle, yelled out of pain and asked for help. Everyone ignored him, including staff, because they thought he was just some crazy guy. Finally his business partner came in a few minutes after and helped him up. Inevitably he sued. $1. Fast forward 6 years later. His ankle bones are fusing and he may have to go on disability in the coming years because of this accident. Today, my mom slipped on ice and broke her ankle. The person whose house she fell in front of came out and yelled at us when I came to help, saying I wasn't her son and how dare I use his driveway. My mom told him that I'm her son and she called me to help, and he just kept yelling about how he saw us from his roof and wondering what I was doing using his driveway. After that, we just decided to ignore him, since we had bigger problems to deal with. But in my mind, I was just thinking, why does it matter who I am or why I pulled into your driveway? You can see her on the ground, you can hear her screaming in pain. Does it really matter right now? What the fuck is wrong with you? I used to work in a record store, and during one of our busy moments of the day, a coworker started to have a seizure up by the cash registers. I immediately stopped ringing up a customer to go help my coworker and try to figure out what to do. About 2 minutes into me helping my coworker, whom everyone could see was needing help, a customer asks if we could hurry up and check them out. I remarked that I'm sorry that I was busy helping someone that was having a seizure and they'd have to wait a couple minutes. Of course, the customer gives me an angry, frustrated look and starts back talking. After I get the situation taken care of, I go to check the customer out, and all they were trying to buy was a CD for 25 cents. Upon the customer leaving, they remarked that they would never come back because of the slow service. I was in the car with my grandma on a large 4-lane road in town. A car next to us sideswiped us, pretty hard actually, so we pulled over to do the whole information exchange thing. The woman in the other car leaps out and starts screaming at my grandma saying, "You are the rudest person I've ever seen. You wouldn't let me over. I had my blinker on." I was completely taken aback. My grandma is the sweetest old lady, and had either of us actually seen her blinker, I know Gram would let her over. But there was heavy traffic and her car was directly beside us. I dealt with the beast in the Camry and got her insurance. She ended by saying, "This isn't my fault, that woman should let people over." I laughed, which took her aback. I said, "You're 100% at fault here. And by the way, a blinker is not a yield sign even if we had seen it. Learn how to drive before you hurt or kill someone." Then we left. I was pretty happy when Graham told me her insurance had accepted liability, and the agent told her something to the effect of, "Yes, she yells at us too." You're dealing with the typical driver who never uses her blinkers unless she feels she cannot get away without it, like in your case with heavy traffic. In such a scenario, this kind of driver now feels that since she has been so nice as to use her blinker, Anyone who does not respect her needs is rude. Where I live, at least half the drivers here are like that. It boggles the mind. A car touched, luckily driving slow, my mother's wheelchair, throwing her frail body to the ground. Driver exits, ignores mother, looks at car. You are lucky that there are no scratches in the paint. Thanks go out to my mother for preventing a murder that day. For a while I worked at a gas station, and most of the time I had to sit in a small building and just watch what went on outside. I was doing a bit of paperwork one day when I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. One customer was waving frantically to me, the pump hose in one hand, with no nozzle, and gas spraying everywhere. I slammed the emergency stop button, and alarms started going off everywhere. I ran outside with the absorption powder to try to get this massive spill under control, and at the same time, I was trying to explain to the people that were coming up to me why the pumps weren't working. At this point I was a bit unconcerned with customer service. My number one priority was to get this dangerous spill under control. The guy who broke the nozzle felt it was a good time to come up to me and tell me, I need a refund for all that gas. I understood that because the gasoline was shooting out onto the ground instead of his tank, he would eventually need his money back. But while the gasoline is still on the ground, and I'm desperately trying to clean it up so that nobody gets hurt, that is not the right time to demand a refund. Fortunately, my manager came out. He had to call the fire department and tell them not to come, and he dealt with this guy and all the people that felt the need to tell me that they were in a hurry and when would the pumps come back on. It never ceases to amaze me how self-absorbed people are. It reminds me of a documentary I saw about disasters, and how lots of people die in fires in restaurants, clubs, etc. because even when they see a fire happening right in front of them, they are slow to react because they want to finish the meal they paid for, or they think someone in charge will take care of it, and wait until it's too late to escape. Background: I work in the same building as a gym on a fairly major intersection, and we have an underground garage where we can park. 10:30 this morning I hear, there's a dead guy in the stairwell facing the road. I asked coworker #1 for that to be repeated, and yeah, I heard correctly. There is a dead guy in the stairwell facing the road. 3 seconds later and I hear coworker #1 say, yeah, coworker #2 took a picture of the guy around lunchtime yesterday, and he has it on his computer. There's shit all over the stairwell. I went down and checked just now. The guy hasn't moved from the position he was in coworker #2's picture. He shit his pants and flies are buzzing around him. As he's describing this, he's laughing. I hear coworker #2 talking and laughing about it. Naturally, I ask, okay, has anyone called 911? Nope. A guy has been dead for approximately 24 hours and no one has done anything except take a picture and laugh about it. What? Right now I'm thinking these guys are either pulling a prank, or they are the pieces of shit I think they are right now. I go outside to inspect the scene. I can smell it from 200 foot away around the corner of the building. It's permeating through the garage and out the vents. It gets worse as I get closer. Finally I walk up to the stairwell and see a groggy-looking homeless guy sitting up and trying to get his bearings straight. I was standing at a crosswalk of a fairly busy street one day, next to a woman gabbing on a cell phone, and her little 3 to 4-year-old son toddling around. The woman wasn't making any attempt to look at the kid, and wasn't holding his hand. The kid, probably bored by waiting, toddled right past me, jumped off the curb, and started walking into the street. As soon as I saw him leaping off the curb, I instinctively shouted, "OHNO!" sprang into action, and ran for him. I managed to grab him by the back of the shirt, and yank him back to the curb before the SUV whizzed by at 40 to 50 miles per hour. Obviously, they weren't paying attention either. The boy starts sobbing, of course, because what little kid wouldn't? It was scary. I spun around, and immediately, I'm met with his mom's face as she proceeds to flip out, screaming about, "How dare I touch her son?" and, "How dare I make him cry?" I tried to argue and tell her that I just saved the kid's life when he walked out into the road, but even after hearing that, she just kept calling me nasty names and screaming at me. She may not have noticed me resting her toddler from a fate of being vaporized into a fine kitty paste, but given the circumstances, shouldn't she have at least given me the benefit of considering that I was telling the truth? She wouldn't stop screaming incoherent garbage at me, while still holding her phone near her face. Mind you, heaven forbid she'd end the call. So eventually, I just shouted back that she should keep a better eye on her son and walk to another crosswalk 2 blocks down. My friend got hit by a car at an intersection. The girl was speeding. After my friend literally flies over the car and lands on the pavement, the driver pulls over and starts to yell at my friend who got hit. She doesn't even take out her phone to call 911 or anything. She just goes on about how, "This is the second accident this month. Why weren't you looking? Do you know how much this will cost me?" I was thinking, what a fact, lady? You just hit my friend with your car, shut the fuck up. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.